On June 22, 1941, an invasion force of 3.8 million men crossed into Soviet territory. The objective was to dismantle the Soviet state in a matter of weeks. Instead, the campaign claimed millions of lives and broke the back of the German war machine. This map shows a continuous 1,800-mile front line surging eastward, driven by an ideological crusade to secure living space by erasing local populations. Planners plotted an advance deep into the Soviet interior, assuming the entire Soviet structure would collapse within 9 to 17 weeks. Adolf Hitler and his high command viewed the Soviet Union as an artificially propped-up state. Their absolute belief in their own racial and military superiority blocked out the basic geographic realities of the landmass they were invading. Yet on the other side of the border, Joseph Stalin made an equally fatal error. He received at least 84 direct intelligence reports warning him of the exact date and scale of the attack. He dismissed them all as provocations. Internally, the Red Army was hollowing out. Political purges over the previous 4 years had liquidated over 54,000 officers, stripping the military of its most experienced commanders. When the German armor finally rolled across the border, it hit a completely paralyzed and leaderless enemy. Whole Soviet divisions waited hours for orders that never came. To the invaders, an immediate total collapse looked like a guaranteed reality. Through summer 1941, Army groups North, Center, and South carved through Soviet defenses. The Blitzkrieg tactics performed exactly as designed, crushing resistance with concentrated firepower. By September, advancing panzers closed a massive pocket around Kiev. In a single encirclement, they captured 665,000 Soviet troops. It stood as the ultimate proof of German military invincibility. But this map reveals the hidden geographic trap of the Russian landmass. As the German forces pushed deeper, the physical shape of the country widened like a funnel, forcing their front lines to stretch dangerously thin. Intoxicated by the speed of their massive early victories, the German high command accelerated straight into this widening void, ignoring the geometric reality of their advance. Behind the roaring tanks, the German logistical network was surprisingly fragile. The bulk of their transport relied on horses, and because Soviet railway gauges were wider than European tracks, captured train lines were virtually useless without massive overhauls. Assuming the war would be over before the leaves fell, planners completely omitted winter clothing from their supply trains. Every available cargo space went to fuel and ammunition. Meanwhile, safely out of reach of the German advance, the Soviets executed an industrial miracle. As the front line collapsed, workers hastily dismantled over 1,500 factories, packing heavy machinery into wooden crates and loading them onto eastbound railcars. These factories were transported thousands of miles east to the Ural Mountains. There, they were reassembled to mass-produce lethal T-34 tanks, protected from German bombers. This data visualization compares the two opposing logistical realities. While German supply lines sharply declined the further east they stretched, Soviet industrial output was rising, safely relocated beyond the horizon. In the autumn, the German advance hit the Rasputitsa, the Russian season of mud. Heavy rains turned the unpaved roads into a thick, inescapable paste that swallowed the invasion force. The mud neutralized the core mechanics of the Blitzkrieg. Without the high-speed mobility of their mechanized units, the German strategy broke apart. Then the temperature plummeted. The lethal Russian winter set in, freezing the unprepared troops where they stood in their summer uniforms. Tactical movement slowed to a halt. Weapons jammed, tank engine blocks cracked from the cold, and the few remaining supply lines fell back on surviving horses, just miles outside of Moscow. The climate and sheer distance stripped the Wehrmacht of its technological edge. The campaign of conquest became a desperate fight for biological survival. At the gates of Moscow, the exhausted Germans were hit by a massive counteroffensive. Fresh Soviet troops, drawn from Siberia and equipped with white snow camouflage, charged the frozen German lines. This counterattack saved the capital and shattered the myth of German invincibility, pushing the invaders onto the defensive for the first time in the war. Failing to capture Moscow meant failing to end the campaign. The Third Reich was now locked into a protracted war of attrition against an enemy with vastly superior industrial and demographic resources. The ideological arrogance of believing that willpower alone could conquer logistics and weather, and a near-infinite geography, ultimately doomed the German army, costing millions of lives in the frozen graveyard of the East.